It's 2020. I'm finally making a YouTube. Hi guys, I am Tori. Welcome to my YouTube. It has been a long time coming. I've been saying that I'm gonna make a YouTube for the past couple of years, and I just have been making excuses because I'm so technology challenged, but it's January 1st, it's 2020, and I'm doing it. So thank you guys so much for clicking this and watching. For my first video today, I wanted to do just like a simple everyday makeup tutorial that I do when I'm going to work. It takes about 15, give or take 20 minutes. It's really easy. I hope that you guys learned something from it. If you do, please make sure to like and subscribe and give me a thumbs up. And I hope that you guys enjoy. So let's get into it. Also, side note, if I'm weird or awkward during this, I'm sorry. I've never recorded in front of like people. This isn't even people, this is a camera. So it feels really weird. I'm sure I'll get used to it over time, but yeah, if I'm awkward, weird, sorry. All right, guys, here we go. So, oh, just kidding. We're lopsided. We're lopsided? We're not lopsided. I don't know how to, I'm so bad at technology, hence why it's taken me so long to make a YouTube. Okay, here we go. So starting off with a bare face, I don't have anything on my face right now. I am going to use this. This is called Late Concrete Cream. It's by Embryolisse. I'll link everything down below. I've been really liking this just for like an everyday primer. I personally have really dry skin, but even if you don't have dry skin, I just feel like this is a very like versatile primer. Since my skin is so dry, I am gonna put something on top of it because I'm a reptile. So I'm gonna just start off by getting this nice and even throughout my skin. Kind of bringing it down the neck a little bit. All right. Also, I don't know why, but every time I put primer on, my face turns like neon red. So sorry, it'll go away in a sec. Okay. Now I'm gonna take this. This is one of my favorites if I want just like an everyday glow under my foundation. I feel like foundation, especially because I like more of a full coverage, it looks very matte. So in order to kind of like dilute that a little bit, I like to put MAC Strobe Cream. It looks like this, if you can see it, there we go. So I'm gonna put that, just like a really thin layer all over the face. Sometimes I blend this, or sorry, mix it into my foundation, but today I'm just gonna put it under. The stuff smells kind of weird, but it does the job. So for my foundation today, I am going to use Armani Luminous Silk Foundation. This is one of my favorites. It's personally not something that I use all the time, but I got a spray tan because it was just New Year's Eve. Didn't do anything, was actually asleep during fireworks at midnight because I'm a grandma. But I have been wearing this because I've been a little tanner than I usually am. I'm very fair, so usually I use Estee Lauder Double Wear, but today I'm gonna use this and I really love it. I need to use it more actually. Now that I've been using it, I'm like, why haven't I been using this? Because it's such a good foundation. It's definitely a lot more sheer than a lot of other full coverage foundations. I would say it's more of like a buildable foundation rather than like a full coverage foundation, but it's still really good. So when I apply foundation, I always use a beauty blender. I rarely use a brush. I feel like if I use a brush, it's more when I feel like I'm like kind of like breaking out a lot and I want like a heavier duty application. But for the most part, I just like to use a beauty blender. I take quite a long time blending my foundation into my skin because I want it to look like actual skin, and I feel like the key to that is just by blending. So I take quite a long time just going kind of like around my face, blending it in. I feel like using a damp beauty blender too just helps it really just like melt into your skin. Another thing is, I really don't like to go like in here with my foundation or really up here because I go in with concealer. So I really just focus on like the outside perimeter of the face when I'm doing foundation, and that's just what works for me. And then I go slightly down the neck. Told you I was gonna be here for a minute. this guy right here. This is by Fenty Beauty. It is a contour stick. This is in the shade Mocha. I've really been liking this lately. It's like a very neutral kind of like, I would say another versatile brown that I really like. It's not too warm, it's not too cool. So what I like to do is just take a stripe here, a stripe here, and then it's a rough life if you're blonde, you know what I mean. If you ever put bronzer on your forehead, odds are your hairline's gonna look nice and orange, which is cool. So I'm gonna do that. And then sometimes I like to put just a little bit right here. So I'm just gonna put a little bit. Cool. Now I'm gonna take this. This is a Morphe Y6, I believe. Yeah. And I'm just gonna focus on stamping this into the skin. Something that I've noticed just over time of like cream contouring is make sure that when you're stamping and slightly brushing up. If you're in any way brushing down, it's gonna elongate your cheeks and you're gonna kind of look like you have like chipmunk cheeks, if that makes sense. So I like to stamp it like this and just ever so slightly flick it upwards. Sometimes I like to put just a little bit right here, so I'm just gonna put a little bit. Cool. Now I'm gonna take this. This is a Morphe Y6, I believe. Yeah. And I'm just gonna focus on stamping this into the skin. Something that I've noticed just over time of like cream contouring is make sure that when you're stamping and slightly brushing up. If you're in any way brushing down, it's gonna elongate your cheeks and you're gonna kind of look like you have like chipmunk cheeks, if that makes sense. So I like to stamp it like this and just ever so slightly flick it upwards. Blend it down. And now with the hairline, I'm just gonna focus on stamping it into the skin. And unfortunately, kind of brushing it into my hairline, making my hair nice and tangerine. Perfect. So there we go. So why I like to put it on my forehead too is because I feel like it gives you like a nice little like halo effect. It makes you look nice and bronze. I feel like it looks like something's missing if I don't do my forehead. It might just be me, but that's just like how I am. So now I'm gonna take the Tarte Shape Tape Concealer. This is the shade Light Fair Neutral. And I also take the shade Light Medium Honey. I'm just like one of those people that mixes everything together. I don't have like one shade that I like. I have like 15. So I'm gonna take 4 dots. And then I'm gonna take the other one, because I'm crazy, and go 2 little dots in between. You don't have to do that, honestly, just do a couple dots. And I'm gonna just blend it in with my beauty blender. Just very gently pressing it and going from kind of like where my eye ends up into the hairline in a straight line. I feel like that just makes everything look more clean. So I'm gonna repeat that on both eyes. Now I'm gonna put a little bit of setting powder under my eyes. I'm using the Hourglass Veil setting powder. I really like this because it almost feels like wet when you put it on. And again, I have very dry skin, so that's why I like it. It's like very sheer. It's just a really pretty setting powder. I really like Laura Mercier's too, but I've just been on a kick with this one because in the wintertime my skin just gets so dry. So I'm gonna put that under my eyes. I'm gonna put a little bit on my nose right here. A little bit on my chin, just mostly in the places that you get oily throughout the day. And maybe just a little on my forehead, just right here. Cool. Now I'm gonna go in with this bronzer. This is by Marc Jacobs. It's really dirty. It's called Omega bronzer, and I'm gonna use this big fluffy Tom Ford brush. This is my favorite bronzer brush. It's a little pricey, but honestly, it's like my favorite brush of all time. I have not found anything that compares to it, and I'm just such a big bronzer person that I feel like it's worth it. So starting with brows, I use Anastasia Brow Wiz in medium brown. I use the angled pencil. That one's just my personal favorite. I naturally have pretty thick eyebrows. I always like to keep them brushed up like this, but when I fill them in, I start with them kind of brushed down. I don't fill them in a whole lot. I like to keep them looking pretty natural, just like the regular shape of my eyebrows, but I am gonna fill in and just do little strokes on where the sparse areas are. And something I do like to do is put a little tail at the end because my eyebrows are kind of short, but I like to make them long, you know? So I'm gonna do that. And then I'm gonna go ahead and brush them back up. See how much fuller they look? Just gives it a little something something. Now I'm gonna take the same pencil and just ever so slightly fill in right here where there's a little bit of sparse areas as well. I'm really careful on this part because I don't want to look like I have like brick eyebrows. My dad used to tell me that I did that, and I've been scared of them ever since. He's like, he would call me Ernie and Oscar. Do you guys know them from the Sesame Street? He'd be like, hey Oscar. I'm like, well shit, I'm not doing that again. So the key is to blending these guys and making sure that we don't have brick eyebrows. All right, for the eyeshadow. So like I said in this video, this is just kind of like a simple everyday eyeshadow look that I do like if I'm going to work or something like that when I only have like 20 minutes. So I'm gonna use this Soft Glam palette by Anastasia. I like this because it has a lot of good neutral browns in it, and I'm just gonna use a few shades. I'm gonna start off by using this guy. I always like to put some kind of really light, almost skin tone base on the eye before I start. And I'm gonna do that with a big fluffy brush. This is the Morphe RG7, I believe. So I'm gonna just take that guy and lightly stamp it and do little windshield wiper motions just so I make the eye nice and powdered. Because I put that concealer on it, I want to make sure that it's nice and powdered before I start the eyeshadow so it's not all sticky. Okay, now with that same brush, I'm going to take focus. I'm going to take this guy right here. It's called Burnt Orange. This is like a really nice just transition shade. I'm gonna start by applying it with a really light hand, back and forth in windshield wiper motions, just making sure that we get it nice and blended. When I'm doing eyeshadow, I almost like to flick it out at the end just because I feel like it like elongates your eyes. So you'll notice that I do this a lot. I almost like it to like match up with my eyebrow, if that makes sense. Just kind of like flick it out because I feel like it lifts your eyes. Okay, now that that's done, I'm gonna take my bronzer that I was using earlier, the Omega bronzer, and I'm gonna take a little bit of a smaller brush. This is the Morphe M433, so it's just a little bit smaller. Focus, is it gonna focus? Maybe not, maybe it will. Now I'm going to take a little bit of a smaller brush. This is the Morphe M433. It's just a little smaller. I don't know if this is going to focus. Come on, there we go. So it's just a little bit smaller than the first one. And I'm going to take that bronzer that I was using earlier, the Marc Jacobs Omega bronzer, and I'm just going to pop that in the crease. So since this brush is a little bit smaller, I'm really just gonna focus on putting it in the crease in the outer corner, not so much, you know, going hard, wiping it all over my eyes. I'm just creating a little bit of depth. I often use just like bronzer for eyeshadow. If I'm just like on the go, if I'm using a bronzer and I put it on my cheekbones, I will literally just like throw that same bronzer all over my eyes and I'm good to go. That's like another, you know, little quick, easy 5-minute to show you guys something different. I found this recently and I really love it. I think it's been out for a while, but I've just been living under a rock or something. This is by Charlotte Tilbury and it's called Star Gold. So it's like a little cream eyeshadow. If it focuses, come on, focus, focus. There we go. So it's like a cream shadow and it's so pretty. I like to apply it with a MAC 242. Take a little bit of it. And where this bare area is, where there's no eyeshadow, I'm gonna fill it in with that pretty cream shadow. So instead of like swiping it like this, I'm just gonna stamp. Just lightly stamp in the areas that were not filled in by eyeshadow. Isn't this so pretty? I'm literally obsessed with this shade. Usually with pigments or glitters, I use MAC Fix Plus, but this is already like a very wet product, so I'm putting it on bare. It's kind of sticky, so it doesn't need any more moisture. I'm gonna take, where are you, brush? I'm gonna take this same little brush that I just applied the eyeshadow with before I put the glitter on. I'm gonna just use like the excess shadow that's already on there. I'm just gonna stamp where the creamy glitter, whatever you want to call it, ends and where the shadow started, just to kind of marry the two colors together. You don't have to do this. This is just like an extra little step that I like to do if I'm ever putting any kind of shimmer on my eyes. I just feel like it completes the look. Eyeshadow, you don't want to see where, you know, a product starts and a product ends. So that's why I really just like to, you know, go over this, make sure that it's nice and blended. You know, and it just takes an extra 20 seconds or so. So now for mascara, that's all I'm gonna do for the top of the lid. Just gonna curl my lashes. Thank God this is zoomed in. Guys, tell me that you don't make the ugliest face when you're putting mascara on. I don't know why, but everyone just like makes such ugly faces, including me. So it's a good thing that this is really zoomed in right now. For mascara, I really like the Extended Play MAC Gigablack Lash. It looks like this. It has a really small brush, which I like because I don't like chunky, like big lashes really. Going to take this pencil brush. This is by Morphe. It's the E18. And I'm gonna take that same Marc Jacobs bronzer that I was using earlier. And I am just going to swipe that back and forth all over my bottom lash line. I feel like this just completes the look. I always smoke out my bottom lash line for the most part, unless I'm literally just doing mascara. I like that it kind of gives it like a smoky vibe, and I go kind of far down. I mean, don't be scared to, I don't stay super, super tight into my lash line. I kind of like the look of it going like far down. It's kind of like grungy-esque. So I'm gonna use that same mascara, lightly put it on the bottom here. My eyelashes are so long on the bottom that I try not to put too much mascara on them, because I swear if I do, sometimes they look longer than my top ones and I look like a weirdo. So I'm just gonna put a little bit. Cool. Now I'm gonna take, for my waterline, sometimes I do this, sometimes I don't. I just feel like it makes the look pop. I'm gonna use a nude liner. This one's by NYX. It's in the shade WP02. And I'm just gonna lightly press this on my waterline. So now that my eyes are done, I'm gonna finish the face. I'm gonna take the Charlotte Tilbury blush. This is in the shade Pillowtalk, but this looks like this. It's just a really soft, versatile blush. Just gonna pop that. Now I'm gonna take, this is by Pat McGrath. If you guys haven't checked out her products, I absolutely adore her. She's amazing. She sells all of her stuff at Sephora. It comes in the prettiest packaging. This highlighter just came out of its pouch, which is great. But this is a little highlighter trio. I use this often, like very, very often. I feel like in the summertime, I like to use more liquid highlighters, and in the wintertime, I'm more into like the pressed powders. I think it's just because my skin is so dry. I like to mix these two together. So there's a gold, a champagne, and then this one's more of like a, it almost has like purple in it. So I don't use that one a lot. It's still pretty, but I would use that more if I was going to like a festival or something. So I like to mix these two together. And I just use a little brush like this. So I'm gonna take these two and then just do a little light coat on my cheeks. On my nose. I always put highlighter on my nose. My mom gives me shit for it. She's like, Tori, why do you like to look like you have a shiny nose? And I'm like, I really don't know. It's just like my thing. I feel like a lot of people do it. I love it though. And then I put a little bit on my Cupid's bow. It's just like a really pretty light shimmer. It's not like, I hate when highlighters have like the chunky glitter in it. This is an actual like light shimmer. This is by Patrick Ta Beauty. It's in the shade She's Proud. So it's a little lip liner. It's kind of like a nude with like a little bit of a mauve tint. And for the lipstick, I'm gonna use, this is also by Patrick Ta Beauty. It's in the shade She's Confident. So this is another really pretty nude with like a little bit of a mauve, maybe almost like a brown undertone, which I think is a really pretty shade for like the fall and winter. So I'm just gonna pop that on the center of my lips. All right, and to finish it off, I'm gonna use the Morphe Setting Mist. I love this. It is definitely an everyday thing that I do. Just makes your makeup last all day. And that is it for my first video. I hope that you guys like this. I think that this is such a pretty, nice, everyday, maybe like 15 to 20 minute makeup look that you can do, that you can maybe add into your regular makeup routine. I hope that you guys learned some stuff. And if you do and you like this, please make sure to subscribe and give this a thumbs up. And if you have any recommendations of anything that you want to see in the future from me regarding hair or makeup, that's what this channel is mainly going to be about, because that's my profession. So I would love to do any of these. And thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time.